Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing today? My name is Leo Naranjo IV, candidate for governor in the 2026 election. I have a lot of interesting things that are happening here, and I wanted to make a short little video because we have some cream of the crop, so-called rich folks, influential folks, establishment picks who are running rampant on social media about how great and wonderful they are as candidates and how they are the only two choices available. And I wanted to take the moment of time to highlight things from their own words because many of you out there, unfortunately, never get to see these people in action. You only hear snippets, and it's only the ones the media and everybody else wants you to hear. So if you will, entertain me here while I go ahead and expand this. And I set everything up so that you could hear a couple of the major points our so-called candidates are arguing.
My biggest thing that I am proud of is I have inmates from state prison who know that I am completely anti-crime, and they are sending me $5 a month, what they make per month, from their work crews in prison. They are sending that to my campaign. Why? They know California is broken.
So these guys are incarcerated now, but saying, when I get out, I want to live in a better California?
2 of them are incarcerated for life. They know they're never getting out, but they know that this state is broken. And when I walk through my jails, the people who are in my jails, that my staff is like, oh, we have to protect him. We have to, keep the inmates away from him. And the inmates want high fives, and they're like, oh, my mom supports you. My mom and dad love you. We know, the entire state knows California is broken. And fortunately, what I want the rest of the country to know, that we are only broken because of the far left leadership that is destroying our state. I have nothing against a Democrat that is middle of the road, common sense. My biggest thing that I am proud of are my jails. The people who are in my jails,
So that's the first clip that we hear is Mr. Bianco praising on Sean Spicer, his show, that he's accepting money from inmates for his campaign from state prisons. And I wonder, what ethical problem does that pose, getting money from people who are incarcerated? What ethical problem does that pose for the Republican Party, knowing this is what one of the things your candidate is doing? Is it solicited? Who knows? Is it for favor, better treatment, for special privilege, time off, getting out earlier? Who knows? Is it perhaps something to propose that might get them out earlier, reduce life sentences? Again, who knows? But the optic is bad. And the fact that you as a law enforcement individual are proud to announce this is questionable.
Within minutes, with just a common sense approach.
So before we set up the next video, let me go into this explanation. California has supposedly reported 2 million illegal aliens living within our confines of our borders. 33,000 have been demanded by the Department of Homeland Security over 3 months ago to be released to them for deportation. Those are 33,000 individuals that are kept in our jails, in our prisons, state prison, and the like. Why has California not complied with this order? We still have those people in our system. We still have those people in our jails. We have not deported them because they're the very criminals that Mr. Bianco is talking about. Instead, Mr. Bianco wants to grant all individuals a pathway to citizenship. Never mind that we have reports of $35 billion getting frauded from the Medi-Cal system because of illegal aliens being in the state. Never mind that we've lost billions of dollars to underwages because of the cheaper labor for house building than we could otherwise grab with union members or even regular contractors. And of course, never mind the drain on the economy for these people who are getting benefits at the American citizens' expense. We have veterans that live on the street that can't get housing, but yet we're passing laws for illegals to acquire home loans. We have individuals who can't get into college, but yet we're mandating that illegals get tuition, almost tuition-free education from our UC system. This is just an example from his own words.
We can fix our immigration system within minutes with just a common sense approach of how we're going to make this work. The bottom line is we absolutely must have a path to citizenship for people that are here. Kind of like something that people don't realize, the 10 million people that came through Border Patrol into our country in the last 4 years are here legally. Biden invited them in, and we processed them in legally. So yes, they have court dates and they have hearings that they have to go to, but we can't just deport those people because technically they are here legally. So we absolutely must have to have a way for law-abiding, hard-working people that want to better their lives and want to be Americans and love this country more than where they came. We have to have a path to citizenship.
Mr. Bianco is citing that Biden, Joe Biden, former president of the United States of America, willingly allowed these people to come into the country. Well, now we have a president that says they are not here legally. So how does that work? Lots of supporters like to go behind and say Chad Bianco is the man, Steve Hilton is the man, Steve Hilton brags about his endorsement from President Trump. But look at this chart graph here from the California the California State Party convention recently held in San Diego, California. 1,511 delegates were supposed to be present to cast the ballots, which means in order to get endorsed, you needed almost 907 votes to acquire the California State Republican Party's endorsement. Instead, only 1,129 delegates showed up, a difference of near 400 people. That drastically reduced the threshold to get an endorsement down to 607. First column is Steve Hilton, 442 votes. Second column, Chad Bianco, 496 votes. No voters are 75, the people that voted for no endorsements. Of the total, nearly 129 ballots were not cast by the present delegates. The percentages you see here are, of course, inflated, but roughly they break down to barely 10% of those people that were present. 10 to 14%, I think, was the chart I gave on a previous video. Steve Hilton had the endorsement of President Trump. The party did not select him for their candidate for governor. Why? Because in California, that was a death pill, a poison pill. Everybody knows that except Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton, as soon as he got that endorsement the week prior, which was around the 4th of April, when he literally begged the president to be endorsed, and on the 5th of April, he got the endorsement. By the 6th of April, for the rest of that week, it was nonstop Steve Hilton bragging about the presidential endorsement. His closest friend and advisor, however, Mr. Carl DeMaio, did not publicly come out and congratulate Steve Hilton for acquiring that endorsement. Why? Instead, Surrogate Tengipa praised Mr. Hilton and endorsed him for his governor run. Mr. DeMaio has not done so to date, or at least to my knowledge. So in this vote, 442 delegates going for Steve Hilton, did they really vote for Steve Hilton, or were they reject votes against Chad Bianco? Similarly, Chad Bianco grabbed 496 votes. He was not endorsed by the president, but he was endorsed by the California Republican Assembly, something Mr. Hilton was not. Again, did his 496 constitute a vote for Chad Bianco or a rejection of Steve Hilton and vis-a-vis President Trump at the same time? In this rejection of both candidates for no endorsement, neither were close enough to force the 2% rule recount that had just been established over the intensity of the treasurer vote. What happens when both men were rejected was very telling. Mr. Bianco came out and at least said thank you for his surrogates and supporters. However, he championed this as winning the popular vote. There's no such thing as a popular vote in a convention winning. You got a bulk of votes, yes. You did not win a popular contest. Mr. Hilton, however, 2 hours later, posted a video citing, "Let us all coalesce behind the leader," that being himself, and let's coalesce behind the only endorsement that matters, referring to the Trump presidential endorsement. With that slight, Mr. Hilton basically just discounted everything that the Republican Party did in the San Diego convention. The only endorsement that mattered being Mr. Trump's, then why be here in San Diego to champion and campaign for the state Republican Party's endorsement if it meant nothing to you? That was the optic that I received when I saw his video. Was that a sore loser, or was that somebody that was discounted by a party where he thought he would walk in and win simply because he owned it with President Trump's endorsement? Mr. Bianco, similarly, in my opinion, was set to receive the endorsement from the state GOP. However, President Trump gummed up the works with his endorsement of Steve Hilton. And so the Republican Party was left in a quandary. Do we support the president and lose a portion of our voting base by backing Mr. Hilton? Or do we rebel against the president and side with Chad Bianco, drawing the ear of the Republican National Committee and all of their angst against the state of California? In this, an individual stood up, Mr. Russell Gray, Sacramento chapter president of the California Republican Assembly. Mind you, the CRA has already endorsed Chad Bianco. He proposed a rule change which allowed both candidates, Mr. Bianco and Mr. Hilton, to receive the nomination for endorsement by the state GOP. Mr. Gray was quickly booed down, and the suggestion was never approved. Moving on to the next one. This video is from the Pat Nixon moment. Pat Nixon was in Yorba Linda, where we had scheduled 13 candidates, of which only 6 actually attended the functions. Mr. Hilton, Ms. Greta Sorozano, Mr. Zaki, Mr. Alba, and myself, Leo Naranjo. Please bear in mind Cheon was here as well. Cheon, however, had failed to inform anybody that he was under an appeal process because the Secretary of State had disavowed his paperwork, had not received the correct tax forms, information that came out later, and was therefore about to be removed from the ballot process. During the time of this video and this forum, Mr. Cheon was undergoing an appeal of his rejection process. Subsequently, that process was lost in appeal. He did, as reported, not file correctly his 2025 tax returns, therefore he is not on the stated ballot. Mr. Greg Alba was never on the ballot by the time this video was made. This video actually took place around the 11th of March, 11th or 12th of March, I believe. But he did not make the ballot. However, he was still here in attendance as a gubernatorial candidate. The topic of contention was public union pensions. I've already spoken on how to deal with the problem. And my version of the problem was you declare a fiscal emergency, you bring back all of the unions and have contract renegotiations. We're not going to tax the public to make up the $1.2 billion debt that the Public Pension Employees Union has recreated. CalPERS has failed in their fiduciary duties to fix or resolve their debts because they've gone 100% go green at the expense of everything else. My solution, declaring a fiscal emergency, firing those people in charge, reducing their salaries, and letting the unions know, A, you're going to start putting in 15% towards your retirement, or B, upon retirement, you're going to start paying 10% of your total package. I was the third person to speak. By the time Mr. Hilton came up to speak, these were his comments directly. So for those of you that missed that, what Mr. Hilton was declaring after he pointed out that some of my ideas were good by name, which resulted in a rules challenge, Mr. Hilton acknowledged, yes, it is currently illegal to do so. However, we have to look at passing an amendment to the Constitution so that we can have the state of California declare bankruptcy. Not one Democrat candidate, no matter how wacky they are, has ever expressed the need to declare California bankrupt. Not one Republican candidate has expressed a desire to declare California bankrupt. I myself have never used that word, nor would I, in any campaign speech or presentation that I have presented. Mr. Hilton, however, has done exactly that in advocating for declaring California to be bankrupt. What I'm going to show you next is the video on Mr. Hilton and his association with the so-called First Lady, now the first partner, Ms. Newsom. And here we have, ding, 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 let me bring it down a little bit for you. This is the Representation Project. Gavin Newsom's wife endorses the Representation Project. Accordingly, they had a benefit, which is where you see these photographs from Mr. Newsom being hugged by Mr. Hilton and vice versa. Mr. Hilton was in attendance. These pictures were taken supposedly on the 25th of October of 2016. Contrary to, we're not friends, we're not buddies, or anything else. Mr. Hilton has promoted their NGO, the Representation Project, evidenced by photos, public praise, attendance, and endorsements of Sybil Newsom's TRP films. These films include the K-12 curriculum to indoctrinate Marxist LGBT in California schools via AB 1955, Hiding Secrets from Parents. LAUSD Super, under FBI investigation, collaborates with the Newsoms reading these banned books. So again, these folks here are all supportive of the transitioning of students. Let's hear what Mr. Newsom has to say as he talks to the former or the current First Lady of California, Ms. Newsom. So while Mr. Hilton, sorry for the volume level here and the discrepancy, while Mr. Hilton is praising Ms. Newsom for her important work in the TRP project, he does admit that they don't always see eye to eye, but they do know one another very well off camera. These are contrary to the statements Mr. Hilton has made in the past of whether or not he truly knows Mr. and Mrs. Gavin Newsom. And so, ladies and gentlemen, with that, as I'm flipping through and finding out different notifications through the course of the day, you see here that what we have is Mr. Hilton saying all kinds of objects in association or different than what he's actually telling the public. Mr. Hilton leans into socialistic methods in the socialistic world. Mr. Hilton runs with those that are rich and famous, highlighted by the fact that he's cavorting with the rich and famous in the state of California. Look at the amount of podcasters that are suddenly on his side in spite of everything else. Jack Hibbs, pastor, Calvary Church, is a recent commentary who has endorsed openly Mr. Hilton. However, Mr. Hilton declared to himself and for himself that he feels he's a minority in a majority population, of which 57% of the people want abortion in the state of California. Mr. Hilton is part of that 57%, and when asked about that, he will generally refer to the 57% group. Now, whether Mr. Hibbs is aware that Mr. Hilton is pro-choice, not pro-life, is unclear or unknown at this time. Attempts to reach Jack Hibbs, Calvary pastor, have gone unsuccessful. He has been approached by other candidatorial candidates for governor, and they have been rebuffed in trying to ask that particular question. Mr. Tony Strickland, state senator here in the state of California, was approached by another candidate and asked if he was aware that Mr. Hilton was pro-choice, not pro-life, to which the senator simply stated, hand up to the face of the candidate, anything you say I don't want to hear about Mr. Hilton, he's on Fox News, therefore I'm voting for him. That's it. I'm pro-life, he's not. I get it, but I'm still voting for him because he's on Fox News. When you have statements like that issued by anybody, it really makes you wonder, do we really need voter ID or should we have voter IQ testing? We have an individual that's professing in different outlets that he is pro-life when in fact he is pro-choice. We have an individual who, during the Yorba Linda Pat Nixon group, stated we have to consider taking California into bankruptcy. Anybody knows what would happen to this state were that to happen and California were to enter into bankruptcy. Our credit ratings would tank, our costs would excel, our blending and the ability to borrow would decrease, and most, if not all, union contracts throughout the state and any other contract with the state would thereby be null and void. Debtors would collect while the public would suffer. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just to contrast a couple of points of the individuals who are currently our top two on the Republican listing, foregoing other candidates who have better campaign slogans, they have better campaign paths, they have better campaign information, and they have better campaign planning on how to bring this state from the darkness that it is currently in. We have not been allowed to be expressive. We have not been allowed, by most parts, to state our views, what we feel, how we can fix, or anything other of that nature. The course and direction of this election has been decided by those in charge, those in power, and those with influence and money. You have two people who have been chosen by the Republican Party to be your only candidates. No one else is allowed to speak. That is not an election, that is an anointment. And that's what's trying to be pulled here on the state of California in this election race. Thank you very much for your time and listening. My name is Leo Naranjo IV. You can find me, Leo Naranjo, 4gov.com. Please look me up, vet me out, ask those questions that need to be asked, and put me up in front of these so-called top two candidates where I've already stood toe-to-toe with them, but because the forums were small, nobody really knows what happened. But I can assure you of this, they did not fare well against me. I leave that to your discretion to decide who you want to be for California State Governor. Those who champion plans, those who champion promises, those who champion everyone else above the citizens of this state, or the candidate who started this nearly 3 years ago with a simple statement. First and foremost, I'm running for the citizens of this state, not for the citizens of other nations. That person is Leo Naranjo IV. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Look me up, follow, ask questions, donate if you can. God bless you all, and have a great afternoon.